it would always be the people that had businesses and like buildings built with their names on them in the area that would just disappear. They they went to school and they would brag about like their parents. Oh, we just moved here from California and we have this business and we have more money than you. And they would make it a point that their kids were like they would move there to start businesses and claim that their children were better than like the typical teenager, like that they were worth more in a literal sense. And a lot of the fucking conversation topic was about who could fuck who and who would fuck who and who had fucked who. And there was a show that came out called The L Word, and they created a map in the show, but it was more like a diagram, but it looked like a map, which is against the rules of creating a diagram. It doesn't qualify as a fucking diagram. But it was basically an explanation of an entire route that people had, or a pattern of events that they were playing out in their lives according to who they wanted to sleep with. And it was almost as if when that show came out, they started doing that at school, and they were trying to figure out how to do it without getting caught. And then there was a big runaround about trafficking, and soon after that I had to move schools, and there were people hiding from school, like not not going to school anymore for whatever reason. And there were people that got caught like trying to give advice that were accused of bullying. There were a lot of words that were twisted and played upon, like they would try to change the context of things that didn't even have context or an explanation. And it was like, if you didn't explain yourself about every situation or any situation in the right time and the right way, somebody would have taken advantage of it, and they would concoct entire storylines to try and create events. And there was a trend that went around, it was called manifesting. And it was supposed to be that whatever you believed in your own life could become true, but instead it was a bunch of people secretly trying to implement things that they wanted to happen in their lives and to other people that they cared about. They tried to flip all of that and make it seem as if they could change someone's life, or say that someone was someone that they're not, and that they're dating someone that they weren't dating, and then it would ruin their reputation apparently, and all these things. And it was weird to me because kind of like we were at school every day and we weren't going on dates. Like, regardless of if you were dating somebody you went to school with or not, it's not like you were dating literally at school. That's what they acted like, and they acted like it was a runway show, and they acted like you had to have all of literally the best things all of the fucking time, and you had to be a character, not so much as a person, and you could never change anything about yourself or you were counted out. To be a person and have character is one thing, but to be a fucking character in a movie that doesn't exist is another thing. It's a gesture to say that someone's a character. But the opposite person on the receiving end obviously has to decide whether or not they feel as though it's a negative gesture or a positive one. Which doesn't exist. There are no negative or positive gestures, so it would have to be an offensive gesture or a complimenting one. But girls really only gave compliments to people that they didn't like. Guys never gave compliments unless they were messing with girls that they were pretending they would sleep with, like trying to taunt them. And then the only time anybody was nice was pretty much the lunch ladies. Everybody looked at each other like they were expecting something all the time. Whether it be like an answer or they knew something about each other. Those types of people would stare at each other like they were best friends. And the people that were friends, it was like everybody knew they were friends, but they had to act like it was a secret in front of the teachers, otherwise they would be separated and the teachers would try to literally dictate who was friends with who, and they would change seats and make excuses for it. And it became a rule at one point that they weren't allowed to change seats unless they had a written reason that was approved by the principal. And then later on, teachers said that they were not supervised enough and they would blame each other for things like this, and then they would go against the rules that were set even if they were announced on the intercoms. I feel like the English teachers were probably always the favorite teachers for whatever reason. And nobody would admit to having a favorite subject, and most of the time they would say that it was math. Sorry. Teachers, our social studies teachers, they would do social experiments on us a lot. They would talk about it. It wasn't like a secret or a thing, but they would never tell us their motive or what was the plan for a course of action or what they were trying to conclude from these social experiments. They never told anybody about that, except maybe the other teachers. Teachers would be extra friendly with some students, and then it would seem as though like they had these students on some type of like metaphorical chain attached to their hip, and anything the teacher wished to happen, like whether it be to a student or like a student parent, or most of the time they would lie about connections outside of school so that they could find out things about each other and each other's parents. And they would go to dinners together. They would talk about like organizing relationships and settings and forced situations. but every teacher on the student fucking council and every parent on the student council was drastically obsessed